Hello, and thank you for tuning in. This is a re-recording of the June Meetup due to some audio input issues at the live event. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people, where their rich culture and deep connection to the land have flourished for countless generations, and we acknowledge and pay our respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So welcome to the Adelaide Microsoft IT Pro Community Meetup for June. My name is Andrew Young, and joined with me this month is Adam Fowler, who has come back after a brief hiatus. He'll be helping out the user group where possible. But about myself, I am a Microsoft Modern Work and Security Pre-sale Specialist at Data. I have a blog M365 Senpai, where the show notes and recording are usually posted. I have a couple of Twitter handles, and I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So feel free to scan that QR code and connect or follow. I'm also a Microsoft MVP as of January. Adam is a Principal Solutions Architect at CyberCX. Those are his contact details if you wish to connect with him. Big thanks to our sponsors, Microsoft for the venue where we have our live events, Systematech Consulting for keeping the meetup going, Data for some swag, and M365 Senpai for the food and drink at the meetups. Into the what's new and what's coming. So under the M365 and Modern Workspace, we've got a new sticky notes experience in OneNote. Gives breathing new life into the sticky note experience. Also got pre-filled responses in Microsoft Forms coming. This is actually rolling out. This is a nice one. So, for example, if you've got a bunch of presenters at a show and you want to send out a survey per session, you can have it pre-filled per that speaker in what's shown in this animation here, and then generate a new URL to share from that session so that when your attendees click onto it, they'll have it already pre-selected with that speaker session and any other details that you wish to have them not have to fill out, because as we know, surveys take time, and the quicker you get feedback, the better. In Microsoft Teams, we are now getting slash commands. As we can see here, you just hit it, whack in a slash, and you get a little menu. So in this example, you can pop out a chat window if you prefer typing it out instead of clicking the pop-out button. Also, there's co-editing in code blocks. So this is leveraging the loop components in Teams. So you can have a bunch of people in a group chat, jump in and work on some code. And finally, we've got custom emojis in Microsoft Teams. So from the emoji menu, you can add and then start reacting with a different emoji type. This one dropped back in January. It's AI generated backgrounds. It does require Teams Premium, but it's a pretty snazzy feature. So I'll play you a quick sizzle reel. You can see how it works practically. How cool is that? Also, there was a bunch of SharePoint Online news and announcements for Microsoft Build, in particular that we've got site copilots now. So this is different to Copilot for SharePoint, which assists you in creating and designing your content in SharePoint. This one is more for using something along the lines of Copilot Studio to enhance and extend your SharePoint pages and document libraries with a virtual agent that reasons over the data that's in that location. So keep an eye out for that one. There's some nice stuff coming out where you can extend that further. And also, we're finally getting the video page template rolling into SharePoint, so you can have it as a page or a news post, but it's more around highlighting a specific video and having it displayed nicely. Over to Intune and Windows. So the next generation of Windows Autopilot is here. As you can see here, we've got new device preparation profiles. So this is a big change where, if you aren't familiar with Autopilot, it's essentially the way that Intune deploys configuration to devices. So Intune doesn't image your installed operating system and all that, but it works on existing operating systems that are eligible additions and versions, and you design what kind of configuration profiles, compliance policies, managed applications, and so on. Where Autopilot comes in, traditionally you would harvest or export the hardware hashes or IDs from the device and upload them into Intune, so that you can then register these devices as Autopilot devices, so that when you sign into the device, it already knows that it belongs to this organization, and then it pushes out the configuration and so on. So what this new version of Autopilot does, it allows you to not have to harvest the hardware IDs. You can sign in, and then it will do a lookup and then deploy based on the account that's signed in. So where in the past you would have to do something like white gloving, or if you ordered a device from a friendly distributor, for example, they could often stage it with the system setup and then ship it straight to the end user, and then they sign in and then it gets the policies. So rather than doing that, you can just ship the device directly now and it will do the same thing. So here's a quick animation from Jose Shinadi, just giving you a quick overview of how that process works. So if it's not if it's a personal device, rather, it won't get enrolled in any way, but depending on if it's got a hardware hash uploaded or not, it will follow down either the legacy path or this new device preparation path to get you to the same place. We're also getting a new company portal app for Windows. It's in preview now, but coming in August. It just gives you a better looking application where you can manage any self-service applications and any updates that are coming. So it has a nicer look and feel, a bit tidier and more streamlined with the operating system. Right, you would have seen the news for this one, Copilot Plus PCs, so manufacturers out there, so Lenovo, HP, Dell, Microsoft, and so on, they've got some new devices with this Qualcomm Snapdragon processors, so it's either the X Elite or the Plus, and they're coming with these neural processing units, so NPUs, which can handle 45 trillion operations per second, which is quite a fair bit. Microsoft has the Surface Pro 10 and the Surface Laptop 6 coming out of these, and it's more for the AI side of things. So we would have seen that Copilot is going to get its own application locally on the device. And leading into that, we've got these features coming. So you may have heard of Recall. This is a bit of a contested one in the wild with varying perspectives. So what this does is the Copilot or the AI in the background is constantly taking screenshots of your computer. So whatever you're doing, seeing and inputting is getting captured, and then the AI is reasoning over what it sees and storing that as text in an SQL-like database locally on the device. Microsoft are saying that they're putting in privacy and access controls, but probably watch this space, let them cook. Just like of any other major advancements with AI, it's probably worth waiting to see what happens and ensuring that the right controls are actually in place before leaping into it. This one was announced a while ago, but Co-Creator in Paint, yeah, absolutely. have a go at that. I believe it's leveraging the designer smarts behind the scenes there, and live captions. So any audio or video being played from your device, you'll get this accessibility option to have captions displayed no matter the source. So it's nice to have. This all comes down to the recent announcements of GPT-4o for Omni, so the multimodal version of the large language model, so you can give it video and images in real time and hold some fairly groundbreaking conversations with ChatGPT. So that's all rolling in and coming to Azure OpenAI. So I expect Copilot will get some better features fairly shortly. There's also a Tech Community Live Windows Edition coming up on this week at a nice early time. Feel free to jump onto that page afterwards to watch recordings at your own leisure. In the security and purview space, we've got automated end user feedback response generally available now. So this is from the Outlook client. You can now mark emails as phishing or spam or whatnot, and you can then edit what gets displayed. So you can have pre-canned responses for whenever it's a clean or a bad email. It's just taking less of the IT team and letting the end users submit these and get the feedback much quicker than before. There is an email protection basics in M365 blog series. The latest is the 5th edition installment to that. So check the show notes for the links to those, and also make sure to check out the monthly news for Defender XDR, which covers all of the Defender products. And we've also got a new Microsoft Purview portal rolling out this month. So if you haven't seen, if you head over to purview.microsoft.com, you may get met with this message here to accept the preview conditions, but essentially what they're wrapping up and unifying the experience to access all of your compliance related handles, your data protection and all that in the one space without having to jump through different admin portals. And it's got a new logo as well, just to stand out from the rest of the admin centers. Top of that, again, there's ninja training for all your security product types from Microsoft. There's a YouTube channel to catch up on the latest. And once you've gone through these self-paced learning paths and the free assessments, you can get a certificate of completion for each one. And when you're done with all of that, you can head over and have a read at this ebook for the CNAPs of the Cloud Native App Protection Policies. So for learning, Microsoft Learn Challenge, the Build edition is out. Obviously, Microsoft Build is 1 to 2 weeks old now. This time around, there's some very AI heavy learning paths, but if you feel free to complete those and get a digital badge to show your participation. Plans have been released on Microsoft Learn. It's pretty cool. So it's a nice way to collate and track your learning progress. I'll play you a couple of videos here so you can get some insight on what it is all about. And just another video on team aspect. Good stuff. And with those career path plans, just here for you. So these are based on the role-based certifications you can get for doing exams, but the learning paths are all there. And yeah, it's just a nice alternative to using like an LMS or Viva Learning, where you can just handle these plans and assign them to your team members straight from Microsoft Learn. There's some updates to the Dynamics 365 certifications. So the Dynamics Sales and Customer Insights Functional Consultants and the Customer Insights Specialty certificates are being retired. They're going to get replaced by a single Dynamics 365 Customer Experience Analyst Associate certification later in September. So keep an eye out for that. This kind of reduces the number of Dynamics exams because there's quite a fair few in that bucket. If you head over to the aka.ms/train cert poster, you can see that yeah, the bulk of the exams are there mainly because they combine Dynamics and Power Platform into the same bucket. What they've done there is they've renamed those buckets to be in line with the Microsoft Partner Solutions designation areas. So you will see that Azure has been split up into 2 or 3 different things now. For the students out there, yeah, there's a Microsoft Student Accelerator ANZ online episode for their career series. This is on Friday morning at 10 a.m. AST. We're talking about students, the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors Program. I highly encourage the students in higher learning out there to get on board, register, join the Discord server, and get immediate access to some of those benefits there. But yeah, I would implore that you try to get a beta and or gold award in the program, because that is a massive boost to you, like your career path. It's a great head start, and it also gives you a foot in the door to becoming an Microsoft MVP as well. And speaking of the Student Accelerator, I have been in touch with Michelle Sanford of the MSA, looking to get it happening in Adelaide as well. So if you're interested in just attending or presenting or being a part of this, making it happen, like, please reach out to myself, and we'll get something happening there in that space. A quick whip around the Adelaide Microsoft community. So we've obviously got this user group. We've got the Copilot and M365 user groups with Daniel Brown, Power BI Fabric with Heidi Hastings and Ben McNamara, the newly revived Azure user group with Simon Holman and Sam Fernando, the Adelaide.NET user group, which is led by David Gardiner, who is our guest speaker this month. And there's also the Adelaide Data and Analytics user group run by Rob Farley. And we're in considerations of whether we should create or start a Microsoft security user group. Watch that space. We'll see what happens there. In terms of what's coming in events, we've got a bunch of stuff happening over in the States. We've also got a introduction to Copilot partner-led immersion experience for the Microsoft partners out there coming up on the 20th. And then next month we've got the Digital Workplace Conference. And then the other major events in America are the Power Platform Conference and obviously Ignite. And if you did miss out on Microsoft Build, check out the news page for any of the recordings and the book of news for the announcements during the conference. Speaking of the Digital Workplace Conference next month, I'll be in Sydney at the Sofitel Wentworth on July 31st to August 1st. So there'll be topics across M365, Power Platform, AI and Copilot, and general thought leadership and business management processes and best practices. There's a quick sizzle reel for the event. All right. Well, this one will be number 31, I believe, across Australia and New Zealand and perhaps Singapore and a couple other places. But I will be presenting this time on Power Automate and Microsoft Teams API. And we'll also have Daniel Brown doing some adoption and best practices with Microsoft Copilot. So we're representing Adelaide and SA over at the Digital Workplace Conference. And if you are interested, we are running a competition. So if you do fill out the form behind this QR code and attend the next user group session, you may be lucky enough to win a 2-day conference pass to the event. This does not include flights and accommodation or the awards dinner. What's coming for us? So we've got Jasmine Nelson next month presenting on Windows Autopilot and Auto Patch. And then we've got Tim Peters to discuss some threat intelligence through Defender and Sentinel. And we've got a bit of a gap coming up, but we'll soon fill that up for you. And obviously in December, we've got a joint session with the other user groups just after Ignite. So without further ado, I will hand over to our guest speaker, David Gardiner, who will be presenting on DevOps for the IT Pro. And over to you, David.
All right. Thank you everyone for having me. My name's David Gardiner, Senior Developer for Pivot. I also help run the Adelaide.NET user group. We do have a meeting next week. Thumbs up. Chat.
All right, we need to get it louder than that.
Monkeys. Right. All right. Thank you everyone for having me. My name's David Gardiner, Senior Developer for Pivot. I also help run the Adelaide.NET user group. We do have a meeting next week. Let's see if that comes through louder.
Yeah, that's a lot louder, Pete. Or a little bit louder.
Can you hear? Is that better when I talk through this handheld microphone? People on the call.
I can hear you, David.
Thank you. I will continue. I feel like I should be taking requests. I'm actually in a band, so but as long as you pick a song, I know it. That's fine. All right, where were we? Okay, so yeah, I work for SixPivot, and we're a consulting company based in Australia. We've got people different states remotely, and we did win a nice prize about a month ago. We won the technology category for the best places to work in Australia. We also won the small organisation category for the best places to work in Australia. And we won the overall winner of the best places to work in Australia. Large, medium, small, SixPivot won the whole. That was pretty cool. And I've got to say they are a really great place to work for. So software consultancy, mostly in the cloud, and a remote first company as well. Okay, let's dive in. So how do we get here? What's the problem we're trying to solve? I think it's really that historically, organisations have tended to work in a siloed fashion. So here we've got a nice photo of the silos in Port Lincoln, actually. But yeah, so the different parts of an organisation often just tend to do their own thing, and they only cared about their own success. They weren't really thinking about the bigger success of the company or whatever the point of the organisation was. So you might have the networking team just worrying about making the network work, the security team just saying no to everybody, and the desktop support team just trying to keep the PCs working and stopping Microsoft pushing out updates that break things. And then there might be the actual end users trying to do their work and trying to sort of navigate those other teams. And maybe they want to introduce some new software and trying to figure out how that works. Or you might even have an internal dev team that are trying to build software to deploy into that environment. They've got all these other teams that they're kind of fighting. And so DevOps really came out of that kind of problem where, so isn't there a better way of working rather than just everybody doing their own thing, and particularly the dev team builds some software, but then it goes into production and then it's someone else's problem. And if there's bugs, well then too late. It's in production now. You just got to put up with it. So that's where it came from. And I guess what I'm interested in is, are there things in DevOps that we can apply more broadly? Here I'm thinking of sort of IT pros, not necessarily a software developer, but someone working in the technology space. Even beyond that, some of these techniques and approaches might be applied. So a nice definition for DevOps that I like is this one here: the union of people, process, and technology to continually provide value to customers. What I like about that is it's not calling out a particular technology. It's not saying, oh, you have to use this process. It's just saying we've got to bring these things together. And if we do that, then we're focusing on providing value to our customers. And so sometimes it might be your customers. It's going to be a different answer to that question for each and every one of you. You may have physical customers that come into the store. They could be online. They could be internal people that you're really, that's the point of you being. So we're going to step through that people, process, and technology. We're just going to focus on some aspects of each of one of those today and sort of drill into that. So first off, we've got people or culture. And this is where we really want to improve the collaboration between those different teams or roles that you might have in where you work. So we want to break down those silos. So remember that picture of those silos there? It's one big building, so it's one organisation, but each one of those silos basically is a separate storage container. So one might have barley, one might have wheat, high quality, low quality. We want to break that down and start getting some communication and collaboration between different areas. We also want to think about shared ownership. So if this new application that's been built for the accounting department, if that fails, is it the software development team's fault? Anyone's fault? Or what happened there? Maybe we all have to, if we take shared ownership of that, then we're going to care a bit more if it's working rather than just, oh, it's shipped and, oh, now it's the QA team's fault. They didn't find the bug. Very helpful. We want everybody sort of working together. And we also want a continuous learning kind of culture where we're interested about learning from our mistakes, but also sort of learning things as well. So one, so drilling into that is things like opportunities for training. So do you have professional development as part of where you work? Is it something you're expected to do in your own time? I'm fortunate that it's something that six people where I work front and centre, one of the that we're expected to do our work time. Some places obviously not so much, and expecting you to stay up to date but not allow space to do. Do you have scope for mentoring, either to be mentored or to mentor other people in an organisation, or maybe through some other kind of professional association? Both of those can be really valuable to be able to learn from others that have gone before you, but also to share experiences. Maybe you might have brown bags or lunchtime seminars. You have access to online training, particularly popular now. number of different suggestions there of some possibilities. Some's free, some's paid. Do you attend a meetup or a user group? The answer is yes to all the people in the room and online, isn't it? So you're all here. You're all interested in learning more, which is excellent. So that's fantastic. Even being able to attend conferences, had some that were mentioned earlier. So sometimes they might cost a bit of money to go to, but they can be a great learning experience as well. Okay, so that's sort of the people. Now, what about processes? So I've sort of got a few here we're going to sort of cover. Let's dig into some and see whether any of those apply to what you would. So first off, we have CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous delivery. So traditionally, as a software developer, this is around writing code and then making sure that code builds regularly. So it's not just on my machine, but we've got some kind of system set up to test that and build that regularly. But how does that relate to an IT professional? Well, maybe you've got a process where you need to roll out Windows updates every month, or some in-house software that you need, and you want to make sure that keeps working every time Microsoft send out an update. They tend to do it. So wouldn't it be great to have some automated systems around that to test that all those processes keep working if suddenly they stop working? Who would guess that maybe Microsoft broke a printer driver? That would never happen. But wouldn't it be great if rather than you finding out from your users, you had automated processes to discover that, oh, hang on, our build's broken when we're trying to test out our software. Likewise, continuous delivery, that could mean how do we push out these things how do we push out these changes? We don't want to do that in a manual process. We want to do potentially every change you make could get pushed out automatically. Or could just say, well, yes, we could push them out that often, but we're having that can be really version control. Again, something that it's really popular in the dev community. I think it can be really more broad, especially in the IT. Be able to track the changes that we're scripts, other kinds of be the history of those changes over time, who changed it, and really we're going to put comments on those changes to describe why we're changing it. So if we can see that Andrew made a change last year and he puts a comment to say, it turns out there was a registry key and we need to make this change to allow. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Rather than having this suddenly appear there and not understand why it's there. So that's going to help with our communication. When new people join our team, they can look at that history as well. Yeah, it's also a great way of sharing. So rather than just, I've got my little set of scripts on my machine that I run, we can use a version control system to share those. I guess that brings us to the thought about, okay, are we a point and click kind of admin person? Yes, it's not unusual, especially for a Microsoft, the user group. Windows kind of really became popular because it had a GUI, provided these really nice management that were visually oriented. So I guess the problem typically find is they don't tend to scale that well beyond a few machines. So if you've got to run around to every single machine and on stuff, or even remote into those machines, that can be challenging. So if there's ways we can script that and achieve the same result, that can be really. The UI can still be really useful to review stuff, visualization of what's is useful to be able to push stuff out, especially if you're relying on, say, a Word document to go step 1, step 2, do that, redo that. Really easy to miss a step, whereas it's scripted out, the script is going to run the same every time. Infrastructure as code is a newer thing, but again, it means that we're using a configuration that we can version control, define the kind of infrastructure we're using, and also how that infrastructure is set up. So traditionally, that's probably been more of a cloud sort of thing, but we can also use it on-prem. So if you've got this infrastructure as code. We've got tools like Bicep or Terraform or Puppet or Chef or DSC to do that as well. You go virtual machines, networks, and even down to the level of how do we actually install the applications on our machines. So things like Chocolatey or can be really. As an example, we're going to jump over, show you what they might look like. Phone down for a second. Right, yeah, I'm going to type one-handed. Okay, so I'm going to jump into GitHub. We'll talk a bit more about GitHub in a minute. I just want to show you a project. So this is an open source project, and what I've got here is some infrastructure as code. It's using Terraform. There's technologies on it. A lot of text there. I guess the interesting thing is right down the bottom here. We're going to be deploying a virtual machine. Find all that in code, so I can have a look at the history of this and go back and see how many mistakes I made in the past to get it working. So over time, changes that have. I'm going to kick that off. That is running in Terraform Cloud, so I just need to sign in over. And it will. Basically, this is linked to my code. Project, and last thing I did was last time I'd done. And all right, that's going to kick off, and it will. I won't actually deploy the machine. It'll just tell me what it's going to do, and then I just need to approve it. So I'll come back to that in a second. Right. Well, that's doing its thing. The next thing is monitoring. So we've deployed stuff, but how do we know if it's working? Well, good to be logging things. Even better to be proactive and actually, rather than waiting for people to complain and say things are broken, better if you could notice that things are get on top of that already. Either to let the users know when they ring up, say, yes, we know about that, we're fixing it, or fix it even before they even notice it. So monitoring all kinds of stuff there. We've got networks, firewalls, access, like the people getting in that are supposed to be getting in, or stopping the other people from shouldn't be getting in. The ways to visualize that, if we've got dashboards, more importantly then, are we letting people know when there's and are we doing the right thing about not sending a whole lot of start ignoring the noise that they're getting told people are getting. But yeah, we want some transparency there. We want things to be actionable. Yeah, it's a way of providing feedback. Here's a bit of a controversial one, but sometimes we need documentation. As a developer, I find it hard to say that. It's true, and I guess that instead of getting run over by a bus, if you won the lottery, what's going to happen to the people who are left behind? Because you've won the lottery, you're going to go and sit on the beach and drink strawberry milkshakes. Then, yeah, is there enough left behind that other people can pick up things that you're doing and continue on and understand it? Or if you're just adding a new person to the team, what's their ramp up going to be like? Going to be easy? They're going to have to keep asking you questions because it's all in people's heads. There's no shared knowledge of how do we. That could be things like some diagrams. So here's basic idea works. Some README docs, version control, then having them right in there. Even the comments, version control can. So don't just write lots of comments like fixing this, trying to fix it again, trying to fix it again. Ideally, you're going to take a moment to write some helpful, constructive comments to really describe why this change is being. People can use that as the story of whatever system you're working. Okay, so we looked at people and process. So now let's have a look at some technology tools. We're going to dive in. Anyone have a shed, and is their shed as tidy as that? That's not my shed. Okay, so first off, maybe you thought when you saw this talk, I was just going to be talking all about Azure DevOps. But DevOps in the name, so that must be DevOps, isn't it DevOps? Like, why are you talking about this other stuff? Well, no. Azure DevOps, I guess Microsoft marketing, I don't know why they just thought we're just going to call this thing Azure DevOps because then all our customers will think DevOps. Azure DevOps is a good tool, but yeah, it's choose to use, as is GitHub. To be honest, if you're starting out and you're looking to pick one, I kind of suggest that if you've got Azure DevOps, it's not going away. Microsoft invested too much and use it too much themselves. That it's, but yeah, they basically offer version control, issue tracking, artifact management. DevOps has things like test plans. There's a whole lot of features that they provide. There's a lot of overlap between the two and the kind of features that they cover. Yeah, they're probably the two ones that Microsoft offer. There's other options as well. Yeah, they can be. Have a look at one of those. I've already seen a bit of a glimpse of the. Visual Studio Code. Does everybody use that now? Seeing most hands in the room. Hands. Yeah. So I was a big Notepad++ user. Yep. Because I used some other tools that were a bit more heavyweight and often. So sometimes you just want either Notepad or Notepad+ because you know it's going to start instantly. And I guess Notepad++ had a few sort of extensions that you can start. For me, since I've been using VS Code, that's really where I've pretty much switched over to use that now. And the extensions that you can get with that are really pretty impressive. So it is a lightweight text editor, but you can add a whole bunch of extensions to add functionality to it. So yeah, if you haven't used it, check it out. I use it every day. Often I use them together. I've same sort of files open in other tools and in VS Code just because we're doing some things. Formatters. Basically because sometimes, I don't know if you've noticed, but everyone has a different style of things, and it's fine if it's just you. If you're just working on your own and you've got to read your own stuff, that's okay. But if you're in a team, often if you don't sort of settle on a style, it can make it really hard to look at things and how they work. So there are some nice formatting tools that you can find. Some systems will have a standard style. So Terraform is one where it actually comes with a format built in so that you can follow the canonical style for Terraform. PowerShell in VS Code. Have a look at that, actually. Talking about that. Jump over. So here I've got VS Code open. I'm just going to jump and open PowerShell file here. I'm just going to scroll that down a bit. And you'll see the formatting is a little bit wonky. The curly braces are a bit all over the shop. So I can actually just right click in here. I've got the PowerShell extension installed. Just format the document. Oh, so much nicer. So just a simple thing like that. Just means that now everything's a bit more consistent. A huge change, but make things a bit better. Linters, not that lint. That does look pretty good, doesn't it? And these are really just about letting you know of extra things. So your scripts, your infrastructure as code, it's valid, it'll work, but maybe there's some just little warnings there that you might not be aware of. It could be just that you've got some stuff that's not actually being used. So let's go, we might have a variable that isn't being used. So, and here I've got one here, there's a PowerShell analyzer that's going to say, that variable is not being used. So did you mean to use it? Are you seeing here? Maybe I haven't finished writing my code. There's some other things here, like in a script, maybe I should be using the full commandlet name rather than an alias. Obviously, they're going to be language specific, but sometimes they could let you know that, oh, this might be deprecated. You really should update this to a pattern. So they can be really helpful. And I've just added some links there to a couple of useful tools. There's Superlinter and Megalinter. I'm not sure what else comes after that, but super duper mega linter. I don't know. And they're basically Docker images that have bundled together about 50 or 60 different linters. You basically run all these linters at once on your files, and it'll figure out which ones are relevant. We'll have a look at an example of that. Security and secret scanning. I guess we want to know if we're using any components or tools or have known. We also want to make sure we're not committing secrets, so secrets or passwords, keys, system or version control. It shouldn't be doing that. It should be stored. So ideally, we've got some systems in place to try and prevent us from doing that accidentally. And GitHub Copilot. So it's an interesting one. And I guess, who's used Copilot, GitHub Copilot before? Yep. Some people like sort of, don't like AI and I don't want. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm in charge. I'm the person with the hands on the keyboard. It's offering me suggestions. It's up to me whether I choose to accept them or not. And there's a few things I found it really helpful. A couple of those like regular expressions, which otherwise I'm going to go read the documentation. And it's pretty good at figuring those out, test if it's right. And repeating patterns. So jump back over to PowerShell. So I've got some PowerShell here. I do have Copilot installed here. So, it's actually going to suggest some code there if I scroll down. See it. Yeah, that'll do. So it's sort of looked. See, I've had that line where I'm doing that query of the drivers installed machine, and then that's not an that. So either say there's no found or it might not be exactly what I wanted to do, but it's not a bad start. Sometimes you get it wrong, and then so you just ignore it and just do what you need to. Just another tool in your tools to choose to use when it makes sense. Sometimes you can do things like, I didn't write this code. Some other person wrote it and they did tree. I don't understand it. Ask it just to tell me, what was this doing? Is where we drum roll to see whether it comes. I did this, a test of this yesterday. Actually took a really long. reason it's just telling me about the drivers bit. Really what I want. That. Try that again. That's not it. Perfect. Come back. So, putting it all together. So let's jump back to okay, so first of all, I'm just going to kick that off. That's going to go and deploy that. Basically said, here's what I'm planning to do. I'm going to build all those things for me. Let's jump back and have a look at GitHub project here. So we have a README. So maybe it's not perfect, but it gives you a bit of an overview of what's going on here. Yeah, this is a public project, but it could be an internal private one. So we've taken the time to write something there just to describe what's going on. So many times, especially in Azure DevOps, create new project in Azure DevOps gives you a boilerplate. So many times I see that the boilerplate has just been left there, which is like some ASP.NET thing, which is useless because 9 times out of 10 it's thing. It would have taken somebody 5 minutes just to go in and customize that. Here's a project, or maybe it's even a link, just a name to contact if you want to find it. That can be so helpful to get up and we've got something there. It's obviously under version control because we use it as a version system here. Files there. We do have some things like taking advantage of Dependabot. So I can have a look in here, and so I've got an automated process to test out what happens in this case when the new version of one of the libraries. So I've got a pipeline set up. So we talk about CI/CD. That can test out, does this new version work, or is it going to cause errors? And okay, yep, that looks good. Loads that in. Likewise, I might want to add that one of those linter tools. Actually, how to go at doing that. See, it's run all these different linters, and it's actually let me know that some of those have done some things. Some of those you might look at and say, I don't care about that. And so you can disable those ones. But otherwise, oh, that's interesting. I might do that. So the spelling ones, we can have a look at something. So yeah, scroll down here and we can say that, oh, it's just letting us know that currently our work security on the machine, we're not being very restrictive on that. We should be a bit more restrictive. That idea, because at the moment, this VM is much anybody can try and remote into. In fact, I think the one of these ones does actually want us. Oh yeah, yeah. Don't try and you shouldn't really be allowing RDP from the internet if you want to be secure. I'm doing that. So yeah, maybe I want to lock that down a bit more. So yeah, some of these linters can tell you things. So there's nothing wrong with my Terraform. It works, it's deploying an Azure VM, but some of these can be helpful to say, did you know you're doing this? Or you've got all this stuff here and you're not actually using it. It's not. But it's just extra noise that the next person has to come along and think, what are they doing? What's this used for? Turns out it's not used. That can be really. And as it is, because it's found those things, it's failed. Build the moment, so I can't merge that pull request. Yeah, I've also got the ability if I wanted to, the issues here, I've got, I can sort of track bugs and features and basically do my whole, the useful thing to have. So wrapping up, I guess, yeah, I've tried to sort of give a bit of an overview of DevOps, people, process, and tools, bringing those three things together, and then trying to think about how can we break down those silos, being able to deliver value to customers faster and more reliably, hopefully end up with happy customers, be it users, external customers, and hopefully then yourselves are going to be happier because you're finding easier to do things that you're doing. Yeah, great time. Not always, but I think it's going to be a more positive experience. Some resources to take away. There's a great book that was released a few years ago by him called Accelerate, where they summarised a lot of research that they did and surveyed a whole lot of companies to figure out what's different about the high-performing teams and companies and the ones that are really struggling, and summarise that. What are the practices that they use? A lot of those things that have sort of been adopted by DevOps. Better, deliver faster. And then Gene Kim also wrote a couple of essentially fiction books, but they're stories about organisations that have adopted DevOps and how did that play out? What did they encounter, and how did they sort of try and work around those? So both of those can be really interesting to read, and you sort of read those and think, I can see that in my organisation, or I don't have that, but I can understand how that could be. Laura is an organisation that most people have been involved in the past. It's now looked after by, they do regular surveys every year, DevOps adoption in organizations and what practices there. A couple of links from GitHub, Azure, how they see definitions there that I've. With that, that's really about DevOps been helpful. Maybe some things that you've taken away. Maybe you're already using those, or maybe I don't use them. Everyone? Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't say if your repository is public or public repositories.
This one is public, yes.
Oh,
so, yeah, the question
great.
was, is this a public repository? This one is public, yeah. So, yeah, both GitHub and Azure DevOps, you can decide whether you want something to be public so that everyone else can see it, or it's just generally just accessible by the people you've allowed. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any questions in the chat? Yeah.
Have you ever attempted an answer to sourcing DevOps market for that?
So the questions are resourcing projects. Yeah, so by resourcing you mean people? Yeah. Yeah. I guess I've seen different approaches. Where I'm working at the moment, there's people that I guess have, but not a big fan of having somebody in a DevOps role, but it turns out that's actually what I'm doing. Where I'm sort of specialising in setting up pipelines and improving build processes and deployment processes. But ideally, it would be that the teams I'm working with would then learn from that and be able to pick it up. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question. Yeah.
In terms of scheduling, people just having availability across projects, skill set matching.
Yeah, so that, yeah, comments really around allocating people to different projects and matching skills to where they're at. Yeah, nothing's coming to mind for me. I don't think, I guess, I mean, as far as these kind of tools, there's nothing that jumps out at me that's going to that. Yeah, I guess taking it in a different way, I guess DevOps being a thing where it's trying to bring people together, then probably tends to prefer things like having teams where you've cross skilling there a bit. But so rather than having a dev team, a team, business analysis team, and the actual end user, actually bring all and have them be in the same place or in some common communicate. I think, yeah, that's going back to that sort of silo thing where we break that down and have all those people sort of working together so that they're not just thinking, I'm in the QA team and it's my job to, but to the extent where you might even have a QA person in a team and they find a bug, and rather than creating a bug report, they go over to the developer and say, I just found this bug, and they go, oh, I'll just fix it right now. So you don't even need to go through the whole, depending on what, it might be something that needs tries, but sometimes it can just be, oh, I can fix that right now. Does that really answers your question, but yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so if you've got GitHub Actions set up, why would you use Azure DevOps to there as well? Yeah, I think you're right. You wouldn't want to. There's no need to duplicate that. So if you've chosen to use GitHub and you're going to use Actions as your sort of CI/CD process, then excellent, use them. There's no so if you GitHub is quite agnostic about what to work with, so it's happy for you to deploy in Azure or AWS or on-prem. We're nowhere. Like you project that just X files which doesn't need. And Azure DevOps is much the same. And yes, it's got Azure in the name, but it can deploy to. That's often choosing makes sense for you.
How do you approach structure ops team to DevOps and now with DevOps? Okay, no. Yes. So how would you approach?
Yeah. So the question, sort of renaming the ops team the DevOps team. I feel like that kind of misses the point. Yeah. It's a similar thing to like, I'm still not a fan of DevOps as a job title because even kind of what I'm doing. But because, I think that if it just ends up being a job title, then you just think, rather than DevOps being that people, process, and tools. Oh, it's just get David to do it. He's a DevOps guy, and then we've got DevOps, right? Because that's not changing. That's not breaking down those silos. Not bringing those people together to collaborate in a better way. It might be okay. Your builds work better, and your deployment. There's those other aspects of DevOps that it kind of, I wonder. There's this other thing called like SRE, and stands for Site Reliability Engineering. Thank you. And I feel like that's probably more of a role, like a position description, and maybe that's what they should be using as their job title, because they're not exclusive. I think SREs and a lot of overlap between the two, and it's almost like the SREs are kind of just people who are really good at looking after those processes and troubleshooting, and yeah, it's kind of unfortunate when those titles get set like that. I don't know. Maybe you've got a chance to try and fight that, or maybe just go, oh well, let's let that one go. Maybe there's other things like energy on. Yeah. Any other questions in the room or online? Thanks very much, and yeah, thanks for having me. Great.
Thanks again, David. Those who want to connect with you, how would they find you best?
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty easy to find. So I'm on, I have a blog, so david.gardiner.net.au. I'm on GitHub. You can see on the screen right now, I'm FLCDRG GitHub. I've got a bunch of public repos there pretty frequently. Mastodon. Do you have an account on Twitter? On LinkedIn?